Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And throughout the rest of this year and definitely into next year, I'm going through the entire Disney animated collection. And since I've already done the first and second film, here comes the third. It's the 2007 film Cinderella III: A Twist in Time. Here's your trivia question for today. If you have ever wondered what size shoe Cinderella wears, they do mention it in this film. What size is said? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So, in this film, we join back up with all of the familiar faces from the original Cinderella. The prince and Cinderella are living their happily ever after. As for Lady Tremaine and her two daughters, Drizella and Anastasia, they're still upset about the whole situation, wishing that at least one of the daughters had been able to marry the prince so that way they could all be living in the lap of luxury. Anastasia, in particular, just wishes that the prince would have fallen in love with her. But, as we all know, his true love ended up being Cinderella, and the two of them are even celebrating this love with a little outdoor party that's being hosted by the fairy godmother. During this event, the fairy godmother misplaces her wand briefly, and guess who ends up finding it? None other than the stepsister, Anastasia, who is stalking Cinderella and the prince during this time. She ends up making a big mistake and turns the fairy godmother into a stone statue. Then she makes an even bigger mistake and allows her mother to get her hands on the wand. Lady Tremaine casts a massive spell which ends up turning back time. She then uses some more magic to make sure that the slipper actually fits Anastasia. And since true love is a powerful magic all on its own, she casts another spell on the prince to make him think that Anastasia was the one that he danced with. During all of this chaos, Cinderella does end up figuring things out and even manages to get her hand on the wand briefly. Unfortunately for her, Lady Tremaine is still one step ahead and manages to get her banished from the land. So, with Jock and Gus being the only ones left who know what's actually happening, can they not only talk the prince into believing that Cinderella is actually his true love, but also stop Lady Tremaine's spell and manage to get the prince and Cinderella back together again? This movie was directed by Frank Nissen. This third film was supposed to retcon the second film from ever existing, but a lot of the characters that showed up in that one reappear in this one. Probably the most glaring mistake they make is right at the beginning of the end credits, they show a painting that depicts Anastasia and the baker. One thing that I found interesting is even though the second film didn't do all that well, all of the main character voice actors came back to do this film. The original concept for the third film was to have Drizella be the stepsister to redeem herself, but due to Anastasia warming herself up to the audiences with the second film, they decided to change that. This is the only Cinderella movie that does not have Bruno the dog in it. This movie was the final feature from Disney Toon Studios Australia before they shut down. This movie was also the first direct-to-video and traditional hand-drawn Disney film to use the new computer-animated Disney logo that was introduced in Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest. So when it comes to the film Cinderella III: A Twist in Time, this one was much better than the second film, and I actually really enjoyed the story for this. I especially like to see Lady Tremaine getting this power because in my opinion she's still one of the best Disney villains. So I'm going to give this movie a 3 out of 5. And now it's time to answer the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. If you have ever wondered what size shoe Cinderella wears, they do mention it in this film. What size is said? So it's actually the king who mentions that Cinderella apparently wears a size 4.5 shoe. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.